Eyeshadows that give a wet sheen effect to the lids are so alluring. It's another timeless trend, beloved by so many, and there's lots of options out there. I think everyone's definition of what exactly a wet look eyeshadow is different. For me, it's not necessarily a certain shade or even really a level of opacity, but more of a finish. And I've got lots of options to share with you from all different types of brands. So let's go ahead and get into it. When I decided to make this video, the very first eyeshadow that I thought of was Blushing Lizard from Half Magic Beauty. And I honestly think this would make a lot of people's lists. It's a duochrome eyeshadow and it has a mauve taupe base with a blue leaning duochrome shift. I heard that this is their most popular eyeshadow. And honestly, for good reason. I actually think I picked out several other shades that are sort of similar to this, because I think especially on my skin tone, from certain angles when the light hits, you sort of lose that base pigment and just see that bluish shift. So for this particular shade, I think that's what gives it a wet sheen. Next, we have the Glitter Puck, also from Half Magic Beauty. This is the shade Dopamine Sparkle. A lot of people know this product, have this product, but I think it's a perfect one that fits this category. This is basically like a light nude pink, and the formula itself actually is wet, like it has water in it, and that helps the glitter to have less fallout when you're applying it. And this glitter is really fun because it can be used on the eyes, it can be used as a sparkly highlight, as a body shimmer. And I think you can see when I'm swatching it on the back of my hand that you can wear it very sheerly or build it up for a little bit more opacity. And from a lot of different angles, it can look like just sort of a sheer wash of sparkle. So I think this formula works really well as a wet sheen eyeshadow. And next we have a Moondust shadow. This is Solstice from Urban Decay. And this shade actually reminds me a lot, both in its base color and its shift, of Blushing Lizard. I feel like this type of shade just really comes to mind for me when I think of wet effect eyeshadows. A lot of the Moondust shadows feel like sparkly topper formula, and I would definitely say that is the case with Solstice. Solstice is described as having sort of a reddish base with a greenish shift throughout. And you can see as I'm swatching it that that reddish base pigment sort of blends into my skin really well. And then from certain angles, you can just basically see that bluish shift. And next we have one of Urban Decay's newer eyeshadow formulas. This is the Glaze On Liquid Eyeshadow, and this is the shade Space Cowboy. I think this is actually my first time talking about this formula in a YouTube video, but basically, it has this really interesting packaging and a little paintbrush that you can apply the eyeshadow with. And the formula itself applies wet, but it does dry down. But they definitely all leave a wet looking finish on the lids. I would say a lot of the shades in this line are a little bit sheer. And you can wear them all on their own, or you can layer them over another matte eyeshadow. I personally really enjoy this formula. I have heard that it doesn't work for everyone. So if you are curious about it, I would recommend starting with picking up one shade. Next, we have a liquid shadow from Lisa Eldridge. This is called the Liquid Lurex formula. And this specific shade is Titania. This is another formula that I instantly thought of when I thought of wet sheen eyeshadows. This formula is so incredibly beautiful. And for me, with these shadows, it's not necessarily the shade, but just the overall effect that they have on the lid. These dry down completely, but they have such a sophisticated sparkle to them. This formula basically just becomes one with my skin. She does have a more champagne-leaning shade, as well as a taupe-leaning shade, a gunmetal, an olive. She definitely has all the major neutral tones covered. And next we have a shade from Violette FR. In particular, I have to talk about this one shade called Scarabée d'Or. It's inspired by a golden beetle, and something really cool about Violette is that all of her shades are highly inspired. This shade is an absolutely beautiful grungy gold green. It's extra sparkly, and it just has such a special way of catching the light. This is definitely a pricey product. I think it's over $30, but I have come back to it again and again, and I would recommend trying to catch it on a sale if you're keen on picking it up. And next we have one of the jelly highlight sticks from Juicy. Juicy is a sea beauty brand, and I think this product is so cool. Basically, this is a multi-use highlighting stick. You can use it on the eyes and just sort of tap it all over the eyes and really get that glossy effect. And you can also use this as a really glowy face highlight. This is the shade 4. I would describe it as a cool tone pink. And you can see from the swatch that you get sort of a multicolored sparkle throughout. I also want to mention that this type of product went super viral last year, and I'm actually going to predict that we're going to see a lot more of this type of products from a variety of brands. Next, we have a shadow from the brand Beauty Creations, and I've mentioned them several times before because I'm just so incredibly impressed by the quality of eyeshadow that you get for this price point. This is the shade Aura, and I think it's another shade that really reminds me of the Urban Decay Solstice eyeshadow. And it has that reddish base with an intense green-blue shift and sparkle throughout. And I believe that this eyeshadow retails for like $5 or $6, and it feels high-end. And next we have one of the KVD Dazzle sticks. This is one of my favorite shades. This is Dusk Rush. I love this formula so much. It's a cream shadow, and it has a lot of shine, a lot of sparkle. It has a great staying power. And it does also have that bluish purple shift that some of the other shades that I've shown also have. And here's what the shades that I've talked about so far look like swatched to my arm. I really do like that there's something here for everyone, whether it's something that's a little bit more shiny or a little bit more sparkly. I think all of these shades do accomplish a wet sheen on the eyelid. Let's get into the second set of shadows that I picked out. First, we have a shade from Enco Beauty. This is called Iradia, and this is described as being a blue-purple iridescent. I actually think that this has a little bit more base pigment than I would consider an iridescent, but in any event, it's definitely a duochrome that has a certain sheerness to it. And as you can see in the swatch, it looks very shiny and wet on the skin. And next we have a ColourPop Super Shock shadow. This is a classic. This is Ritz. And I would say this is considered to be a pretty good dupe for the Urban Decay Moondust shadow in Space Cowboy. When you apply this shade on the skin, it's another one that you sort of lose that base pigment and you just get a really beautiful sheer wash of sparkle, which is another effect that you get with Urban Decay Space Cowboy and one reason why I think it's super popular. I also think that this tone of shade is just super flattering on a very wide range of skin tones. And when I made my video on sheer diamond-like toppers, many people mentioned to me that those type of shades just look too icy on them, so I think a champagne like this is a good alternative. Next, from Dose of Colors, we have one of their Block Party shadows. This is the shade Caffeine Queen. And these are such a good value. I think they're only like $5 on the Dose of Colors website. They may not look like much in the pan, but when you blend it out, that's when you can really see the sparkle in it. And Caffeine Queen in particular is such a beautiful taupe leaning shade. In general, I find a lot of the products from Dose of Colors to actually be very underrated, especially their eyeshadows. They make absolutely beautiful, sultry, neutral shadows. Next, from e.l.f., we have a definite hidden gem. This is the liquid shadow in the shade Galaxy. And this formula just looks so shiny on my skin. I've also done a wear test with it, and I thought it wore beautifully on me for like 7 or 8 plus hours. And this formula does dry down completely, but can we just take a moment to really appreciate how wet this looks on the skin? And now we have a single shadow from Clionadh. This is one of their glitter type shadows. This is the shade Vault, and it's described as having a semi-sheer brown base. And it's got multicolored sparkles throughout, but I would say the most prominent shift that it has is sort of a grungy green. There's actually several shades from Clionadh that would fit that wet look vibe, but I am trying to show a capsule selection of shadows for this video. Next, we have a shadow from Terra Moons. This is Veil Nebula. This has been around for years and it's remained a favorite for so many people. I have a difficult time putting into words a description of this shade, but it's described as having plum, maroon, blue, and green. With all of those shades, it's no wonder that it's hard to describe. On me and my skin tone, it just reads as a super interesting neutral shadow, but I definitely think that this is a shade that will work on a lot of different skin tones. Next, we have a single shadow from Touch of Glam Beauty, and I think I actually mentioned this exact shade in one of my other videos as well, but I absolutely love it. It's definitely one of my favorite shades from the brand. This is definitely a very deep and grungy and moody shade. I honestly like to think of it as a sparkly oil slick on the eye. Touch of Glam does some of the most beautiful, deep, and grungy shades, especially in their birthday shadow line. So if that vibe fits your aesthetic and you like this shadow, I would definitely recommend checking out more in this line. And then last but not least, we have a loose glitter from Cloudicos. This is their cosmic eye light formula in the shade Nocturne. I would describe this specific shade as being sort of a very deep and moody blue purple. And something I really enjoy about loose eyeshadows is that they really do have a special way of dancing in the light. And here's what the second set of shades I talked about look like swatched to my arm. I'm really curious what you think about the shades that I picked for this category of wet sheen. I feel like this is a lot of fun to do a video on because everyone's definition of what wet sheen means is a little bit different. And please let me know in the comments what type of shades you would include in this category. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.